When we run up against objections by our connections, it can feel a little bit like the Black Knight standing there yelling, "None shall pass." Okay, for a younger generation, let's make it Gandalf and "You shall not pass." But anyway, the point is, Monty Python or Lord of the Rings aside, it feels like somebody's now just stood in the middle of the path and said, "We're not moving forward. You're stuck." Well, that's really not reality. Objections simply mean that there's something that needs to be overcome, something that needs to be worked through. So this is going to be a little bit longer of a video because we're going to look at some of the common objections that come up as we work with connections. But remember, this is not a none shall pass, that nothing's going to happen kind of mentality. This is looking at our the reality and helping our connections to see that there are ways to work through their potential objections. The first objection being is when somebody uses the phrase, "Well, I just need some time to think about it," or "Can I think about that?" or "Let me think about that." Any of those variations, the objection is, "I need to think about that." By immediately throwing a specific resolution out there, we can, in fact, create a mismatch and throw our own objection into the way, where they now feel like they're being told what to do rather than being allowed to think about it. So this is where, using our natural human curiosity, we can begin to look to help find what the root issue is. What really is the problem that needs to be overcome? So by using the phrase just out of curiosity, what is it specifically that you need some time to think about? Tell me what you need to think about, because it's maybe something we both need to think about, or there's some resources available. Help me find out what really is the objection. Just out of curiosity, what needs to happen for you to make a decision about this? Now we're talking about an action or something moving forward. Just out of curiosity, what is stopping you from moving forward at this time? You notice each of these is some variation on asking specifically what the actual objection is. But it goes back to what we talked about before with help me to understand. This time it's just out of curiosity. What's in the way? We will sometimes get people that will come up with an objection that we just need to understand why they're saying what they're saying. So if we ask just out of curiosity what needs to happen, and then they give us a response that's still somewhat incomplete, this allows us to ask, so what makes you say that? Now we're going to ask and listen and continue to validate their concerns. Again, we may not be it's not always best to throw an immediate response out there. They may still be trying to come up with their own words to describe what's going on. So I need to think about it. What makes you say that? The connection says something like, "I need to speak with somebody else before I make that decision." And you say, "What makes you say that? Why do you need to talk to it?" Or what makes you say that may tell us who they still feel like they need to talk to. Or, "I don't think I'm willing to pay that high of a commission." What makes you say that? Let them share their experiences or their thoughts and why they may feel like that your commission amount is inappropriate. Remember, everything's negotiable, but until I understand from what their position is, what they're negotiating from, I need to know what makes you say that. Overcoming the objection of the word no. Now, most people aren't going to just come out and say no. Occasionally they will, but most often people try to couch the word no in other types of answers or pushback. We're choosing not to make a decision or continuing to push back and say, "Oh, I'm not ready yet." Again, pushing them for a specific response is going to create a mismatch and could create retrenchment by them where they just dig in their heels. Our first goal is, now that we've found out what potentially the problem is, but they're still not sure, we need to move them from a no to a maybe, or "I hadn't considered that." As one of my sales mentor put it, sales really begins at no. And really, no just means not right now. So let's get past not right now and find out the maybe, what moves us to that next stage. So before you make up your mind, let's review the offer again and see if we missed anything. Before you make up your mind, let's look at what similar properties are sold for in this market. Before you make up your mind, let's take another look at what we can do to get you the best deal for this home. Before you make up your mind, let's just take another look at it. Step back, take a breather, look at it another way. What makes you say you're not ready? Before you make up your mind, let's look at it another way. We talked about this one a little bit before, but if I can, will you? We've talked about it in some other phrasing, but this is another way of presenting solution, something you can do to bring a resource available to them. Are they willing to negotiate and move into a negotiating space? If I can get the seller to commit to that purchase price, will you consider it delayed possession? In other words, if I can get the seller to concede to something you need, will you concede to something the seller needs? If I can get the buyer to remove a specific repair request, will you agree to repairing the dishwasher? Again, if we can come to some kind of, if I can get one person to move, will you move? It's not no now. We've now moved into that maybe space. Let me think about it. Yeah, I can do that. Let's move away from no to maybe, and from maybe to here's a potential solution. The last one we'll look at comes about a much older generation would recognize the TV show Columbo. You can go on YouTube and find him if you want, but really Columbo's famous line was, after an interrogation, after everybody thought he'd asked every question, he'd turn around and say, just one more thing. Just one more thing. And that would be the question that tied everything together. So as we get our connection moving away from no, and they start saying yes, or even maybe, now we're moving away from an objection to a potential solution. Now they're moving positively. So let's just go for one more thing. Let me ask you one more thing. Just one more thing. Would it be okay if I introduced you to a lender I've worked with before? Just one more thing. When do you want to hold your open house? Just one more thing. What is keeping you from writing an offer on this home right now? Just one more thing. What's keeping you from committing to this offer? Just one more thing. They've been in a series of move from no to maybe to yes. Now it's just one more thing. Let's wrap this all up. We've now found the core issue. So just one more thing. I'm making sure I've resolved that core issue. So just one more thing. Don't be afraid of no. Just one more thing. Would it be okay if we move away from no and we pass?